Hey everybody, this is going to be part one, my top 10 of my 40 favorite live albums of all time. So these are my absolute favorites, my 10 favorites. When it comes to the top 10, I find anyway that tends to be the easiest list to make because I know what my favorites are. I know which ones I listen to the most. For me, like I mentioned in previous installments of the series, I'm only going with the albums that I have on vinyl. Some of you have commented on great live albums, which I have, and were not on my list, but it's because I have them on CD, or maybe I have them on cassette, or maybe I have them on 8-track, or maybe I have them in chew-bop form, or maybe I have a download card for them, but I'm only going by what I have on vinyl. So, without further ado, number 10. The Allman Brothers live at the Fillmore East. This is a jam band spectacular. You got the Allman Brothers band at the height of their powers before Dwayne Allman passed away and before the other guy, and I'm sorry, I can never remember what his name is, but they passed away within a year of each other. But this was such a fantastic band when they were out. I mean, all you need to hear is this album right here, although they've come out with a couple other, at least on CD anyway, live releases from the Allman bands in that 1969-1970 period where they were on fire. But my favorite song on here, far and away, and one of my favorite live songs ever, is Stormy Monday. I love just that slow blues workout that they do on that song. You've got an entire side dedicated to You Don't Love Me. You got Hot Land on here, one of my favorite Allman Brothers songs, In Memory of Elizabeth Reed, a almost 13-minute version of that. You got Whipping Post. Holy crap, Whipping Post, such a kick-ass song, and they do it. They riff on Whipping Post for like 22 some minutes, and it doesn't even feel like 22 minutes. It's like over, it seems. Way too soon. First side, you got Statesboro Blues, Done Somebody Wrong, and like I said, the aforementioned Stormy Monday. But this is a great, solid live album. Belongs in everybody's collection. Don't give me Fish, okay? This is the ultimate live jam band. Number 9. Dire Straits, Live Alchemy. This was right after the Love Over Gold album came out, which Love Over Gold, I think, is probably my favorite Dire Straits album, but you still got a great sampling of Dire Straits stuff on here. Once Upon a Time in the West is such an interesting choice to open this set up. I don't know if that's what they opened their concerts up back then, but that was the lead-off track on the Communique album. I would have thought, like, I don't know, I'm not sure what, maybe Romeo and Juliet or something like that to start off, but it's still a very cool song, and Romeo and Juliet is next. You got Espresso Love off the Making Movies album, Private Investigations, one of my favorite songs off Love Over Gold, Sultans of Swing, of course you got to have that song on here, I love the version of that. Tunnel of Love is great. Telegraph Road, again, another epic song from Love Over Gold, which I love. Solid Rock is great. And then you got a little bit of the theme from Local Hero, which was a soundtrack that Mark Knopfler completed. It was kind of his first solo work. But yeah, great album. If you love Dire Straits, you will be in heaven listening to this. And one of my favorite Dire Straits albums just to kind of throw on a Sunday morning. It sounds so good. All right, number 8. Song Remains the Same. And I've heard people shit on that. Well, not necessarily people, but critics have shit on this album. Like, well, Led Zeppelin was so much better than what you get on here. And if that's the case, and I think we saw a little bit of that on How the West Was Won, but still, I think this is a great live album. Now, I'll talk about my favorites, and then I'll talk about how it could have been better. The first side is amazing. Starting off with Rock and Roll. Holy cow, the power. when that song kicks in after Bonzo's drum intro is great. Celebration Day, which is a great deep track off Led Zeppelin 3. And then The Song Remains the Same, straight into Rain song. Love that side. And then you got what is a very unwieldy Dazed and Confused, which I think they should have edited down maybe so we could have more of this stuff. They came out with an expanded version of this on CD where you're getting songs that were not on the this original release, like Heartbreaker, and I think there might have been a version of Thank You or something, but you got more substance than what was really on here. And so that's kind of my thing, is like Moby Dick and Dazed and Confused just take up way too much space on here. But it's freaking Led Zeppelin. And any Led Zeppelin is good Led Zeppelin. Side 3, I love the live version of No Quarter on here with that spooky mellotron. Can't get enough of that one. If any song was going to take up an entire side of an album, I would have been happy with No Quarter. And then you have Stairway to Heaven, which is a great version on here. And then, you know, the way A Whole Lot of Love ends, they've got some other songs that they weave in there as well. But yeah, you know, in spite of the fact I could do without the 30-minute Dazed and Confused, this is still a great live album. If it was a single album, I still would have it in my top 10. It's just great. It is. They sound great. They sound fantastic. It's Led freaking Zeppelin. All right, number 7. David Bowie, his double album, Stage. And this is not going to be David Bowie for everybody because it's sort of, you know, it was in his Berlin period. I think, is that what we call it? But it's pretty much a majority of this album is the Heroes, the Low Profile, and the Lodger album. So it's kind of his almost like Brian Eno period where he's into soundscapes. It's a little bit darker, more industrial sounding. It's not kind of all the hits from his early stuff. I mean, you don't have like Space Oddity on here. You don't have Suffragette City, Jean Genie, like that kind of stuff. It's definitely like more of that later, I think it was like predated the Thin White Duke period that he went through. But you got Hang On to Yourself on side 1, Ziggy Stardust, 5 Years, Soul, Love, Star. And then we're getting into some of that Warsaw period, or Berlin period, Station to Station, Fame, Warzawa, Speed of Life, Art Decade. I mean, Heroes is on here, but yeah, I love this album more than any other. I know there's a David Live that came out, but for me, this is the better album. And I like that period of David Bowie because it's definitely different from any other period of music that he's had. So now we're into number 6. Going to be my second album in my ranking by this artist, and I'm talking about Talking Heads. The name of this band is Talking Heads. And you've got 2 different periods. This is a double album. And again, with that, why can't we have this in a gatefold? Hate this. This like jumbo sleeve where you just stick the 2 records. Give us a gatefold. Come on. Anyway, where was I? 2 separate periods of Talking Heads. You've got the early period, which covers the 77, more songs about buildings and food. And then you've got the second disc, which covers kind of that latter period, but with Fear of Music also on here. And I love how on the cover you've got them in concert, and then on the back you've got them playing in somebody's living room. I'd love to have Talking Heads in my living room. Hell yeah, I'll break out the chips and dip, and you can work your way through some of your best early songs. But yeah, like on here, great song selection. I Zimbra, an interesting way to open the album. That was the lead-off track on Fear of Music. Drugs, great track off Fear of Music. Houses in Motion. Life During Wartime is great. Take Me to the River, the great Al Green cover. The Great Curve, Cross-Eyed and Painless. So actually, as I'm thinking about it now, so that disc covers pretty much the Remain in Light and the Fear of Music. And then you flip it over And I don't know what's the first disc and what's the second. It'd be helpful if we had a gatefold. Because now you have all the songs here in tiny type down at the bottom. But yeah, this is the it says live. Okay, so yeah, this is the 77, 79, where you've got New Feeling pulled up. It's interesting that that's on here. I love that from the 77 album. Psycho Killer, great. And I prefer this version to the one on Stop Making Sense, actually, although that version is pretty cool, but nonetheless. And then, yeah, it's so hard. Artists Only, I love that track off 77. So yeah, it's kind of two phases of the band, the early phase and then the 80 to 81 period, both represented on here, but a great, great live Talking Heads. It's Talking Heads. Okay, number 25. Gotcha. And I'm doing some self-deprecating humor. Okay, number 5. Elton John, 11/17/70. Believe it or not, when I was a kid, one of the first albums I had on my little tiny piece of crap turntable was this one. One of my uncles, I think, gave this to me. Like, I don't listen to this. And at the time, I was like, oh, it's live. And when I was younger, I wasn't much into live. I more preferred like Elton John's hits. I had his greatest hits, and I just loved all that Goodbye Yellow Brick Road and Rocket Man and stuff like that. I really didn't appreciate this. I'm like, thanks, I guess. But no, now this is one of my favorite live albums of all time. It's great. It's that early Elton John when he and Bernie Taupin were like hungry young songwriters and they had so much to prove. I'm not sure where this was recorded. It says the performances on this album were recorded during a live radio concert broadcast in New York by WABC-FM on November 7th, 1970. I was a wee lad of like 5 months old or something like that. I had no idea. When I was 5 months old, I had no idea who Elton John was, but was I missing out? So anyway, yeah, great, great album. Take Me to the Pilot, one of my favorite Elton John songs. Honky Tonk Women, Rolling Stones cover, do a great version of that. 60 Years On, Can I Put You On? Like that early Elton John sense. No nonsense, no costumes, no bullshit. And I'm not suggesting anything Elton John went on to do was bullshit, but you know what I'm saying. It's just like we're just on the stage and we're just kicking ass. Bad Side of the Moon and Burn Down the Mission on side 2. This really could have been a double album easily. But what a great live document it is. You got the classic lineup, Nigel Olsson, Dee Murray. They were a power trio back then. Just amazing. Love that stuff. This is before most people knew. Elton John was not a household name at this time. I think the Tumbleweed Connection album was the most recent record that had come out. But holy crap, what a great live document. All right. Number 4, I can't lift it up. It's so heavy. Yes, Songs. This beast of an album. It's like a triple record, yeah. And I love it for the artwork because you get like 20 Roger Dean paintings in this whole package. But like, holy crap, in the record store, this was a behemoth at the time. I don't think there were a lot of box sets. I mean, you had Chicago Live at Carnegie Hall, but this was before Bruce Springsteen put out his monster box set in the early 80s. But yeah, I mean, this is the history of progressive rock right here. It's Yes, flexing their muscles. We're the best, and we know it. And all of Yes's early great stuff is on here. The stuff that made them what they are. Close to the Edge takes up an entire side. Yours Is No Disgrace. Starship Trooper closes out this. But you got Along the Way, Perpetual Change, and You and I. Wonderful. Your Move, All Good People, Long Distance Runaround. Greatest hits right here. And they were only like, what? 4 or 5 albums into their career, and already they had pretty much defined, paved the way, invented progressive rock at this point. I'm not sure I care for the brown aesthetic of this album cover. Like, this should be a lot bigger. Should maybe take up the whole thing, but I mean, whatever. I'm no art director. Look at that. How cool is that? Amazing. Anyway, speaking of triple live albums, and the number 3, yeah, Beatle fan Jeff going with some Paul McCartney, Wings Over America. Love this record. Now, you know, Paul McCartney, prior to this, he'd done some club stuff. I don't think he did like a full-on stadium tour until this. And so Beatle fans had to wait like 5 years after the breakup of the band to get, I mean, I know you had George Harrison who had done his tour for the Dark Horse album, but George being very temperamental, you know, he had to have Ravi Shankar open the set, and then he did a couple, like a handful of Beatles songs, changed the lyrics to some of them, like he did In My Life. But we're not here to talk about George. But nonetheless, it was sort of like, great, a Beatle, wish it could be Paul McCartney. And now it is. And yeah, triple album, holy crap. This was such, and Wings were an incredible band. I mean, Wings certainly, started off a bit rough with Wildlife and Red Rose Speedway, but then you've got the amazing Band on the Run, and then Venus and Mars, and then Wings at the Speed of Sound. It was like, okay, we picked up our momentum, and now they were a juggernaut. Opens with Venus and Mars, rock show, brilliant opener, Let Me Roll It, Jet. And they could have left off the Beatles songs and there'd still be an incredible compilation. You got Spirits of Ancient Egypt on here. Maybe I'm Amazed. That's the only version you hear of Maybe I'm Amazed on the radio anymore, is the one off of here. But it's so good. Let 'Em In, Time to Hide, maybe not so much. Silly Love Songs. I mean, the triple album, there's some songs, sure. Could have chucked it and got it down to a double album, but I don't care. Like Paul, like, I'm putting it all out. Magneto and Titanium Man is on here, for crying out loud. Got a couple of Beatles songs. I love that he does I've Just Seen a Face, Blackbird, Yesterday. Yeah, it's funny, he got Bluebird and Blackbird on here, both of his bird songs. But yeah, thank you, Paul. This album is awesome. Wings were awesome. All right, down to the 2. Any guesses? I'll wait. No, but I thought about putting that on, but it's just too long. And now that you mentioned that one, that would have been a good one. That'll be an honorable mention. Yes, you guessed it. The Who, Live at Leeds, number 2. And, some of the complaints that, I want to say complaints, but one of the things that I've kind of lodged at some of the other live albums is, I wish there were more classic songs by that artist, like on The Doors, Absolutely Live, for example. But the thing with this one is there's not like a whole lot of classic live Who stuff on here, but the stuff that is on here, holy crap. And yeah, The Who were heavy metal. The Who were hard rock. Listen to this album. They blew people away. The Who went from being kind of a singles band, kind of a quirky singles band. You had like, I don't want to call them novelty, but you had like I'm a Boy and Substitute and kind of, Pictures of Lily, kind of like these cute little pop singles that The Who put out. And they never really kicked ass on any of their records till maybe like Tommy. You kind of saw flashes of that. And then, holy crap, The Who on tour in 1970 blew everybody's minds, because it's like we had no idea this band could rock as hard as Led Zeppelin, could rock as hard as Canned Heat, could rock as hard as Cream, could rock as hard as Black Sabbath. Yeah, they kick ass on this record. You got Young Man Blues, which is just a barn burner. Summertime Blues, which they played on the radio. Shakin' All Over. And this is almost like, a covers album, but they do it so great. They do it so heavy. The Summertime Blues is remarkable. And then on side 2, you got My Generation, almost a 15-minute version of that. And then The Magic Bus, like a 7-minute workout of that. And obviously they've expanded this. I think there's the, it's not called the Legacy Edition, but there's an expanded version of this where you get the whole of the Tommy performance that they did. Again, why was this a single album? This could have been easily a double album or a triple album. And maybe the thought was, well, we just gave people a double album with Tommy, and we know, Pete Townshend's talking about releasing a double album in 1973. So we don't want to bombard the market with double albums, even though that's what Chicago was doing. They said, we're just going to keep this as a single, but I'm glad that since on CD, they've expanded it. And it's funny because this was like, 5 tracks on here, and then now it's like this bloated 2-disc with all this music on it, but all of it's great. I suggest, honestly, get the expanded version, because this is great, but the expanded version is even better. I've only got this version. I've got the CD expanded with all the tracks, but this is phenomenal. But my number one, hard to top this album. There are going to be people who disagree, but I'm just a huge Stones fan. Get your yah-yahs out. Have no idea what that means. How do you get your yah-yahs out? Or why do we have Charlie Watts here jumping up and down on this airstrip with a donkey with his drums? Nobody's ever been able to explain what the hell this is all about. I think in the film Gimme Shelter you see a little bit of this, but there's still no explanation. Like, what is going on here? I've always wanted to know that. What does it mean? But I'm not here to talk about the cover artwork. I'm here to talk about the album itself and the Stones. Stones went through that funny period where I had the Brian Jones bluesy R&B covers. Then we're writing some psychedelic songs. We did our trippy psychedelic album. There's Satanic Majesty's Request. Brian Jones kind of got drugged out. We went back to our bluesy roots with the Beggar's Banquet album. And then they're like, we're going on the road. We're kicking Brian Jones to the curb. We got Mick Taylor in the band, and we're going on the road, the greatest show on earth. And they did kick ass. Holy crap. Jumpin' Jack Flash, Carol, like, holy shit, that guitar interplay between Keith Richards and Mick Taylor is so electric. Stray Cat Blues, Love in Vain, the definitive version of Midnight Rambler, just blows the version on Let It Bleed Away. Sympathy for the Devil, a very cool version, unlike anything. They totally reinvented the song for this album, but it's great. Live With Me, Little Queenie, Chuck Berry's, influence, his footprint, his handprint, whatever you want to say, is all over this record. Rolling Stones never were coy about their debt to Chuck Berry. Honky Tonk Women, great version. Then closes out with Street Fighting Man, another album. Wish would have been a double, but it's just the Stones at their best. It is awesome. It is my number one. What's your top 10? What's your number one? Hope you've enjoyed this list, whether you agree or disagree. Everybody so far has been very kind in the comment section, so I do appreciate that. But yeah, another fun project out of the way, off the boards, but hope you're doing well. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and take care.